Thank you. All right. So thank you for joining, everyone. My name is Lara. I'm head of growth and lending consultant at Crombie. I have been working in the mortgage space and with lending institutions for around 5 years from a business perspective as a technology partner. And here I have with me Pablo Vittori, who's our CTO.
Hi everyone. I'm Pablo Vittori, as Lara mentioned. I'm the CTO at Crombie. I've spent over 25 years building and scaling tech teams and product across Latin America and the US, including years at Globant, where I was CTO. These days, I'm very focused on helping companies to adopt new frameworks, tools, AI, and scale in the right way. Glad to be here with you today.
Great. So over the next 35 minutes, we're going to look at lending operations through a lens we found that resonates with operators at every scale. The lending business as a living ecosystem, not a stack of software, but an organism that is either alive, on life support, or flattening. And at the end, we'll have a open space for a Q&A and also for you to share experiences and whatever this webinar has inspired you to think about or to reflect about. Okay. Here. Over to the next slide. Let me see. There we go. So imagine that we have this human body. The heart pumps blood, the lungs process oxygen, the nervous system coordinates the movement. What if none of those systems actually communicate with each other? The nervous system reacts late, the information arrives fragmented or not at all. That body doesn't operate smoothly. It survives in spite of itself. That increasingly is how many operations in lending function today. Originations has its systems. Servicing has its own underwriting. Underwriting runs separate workflows. Compliance has different tools. Customer support has limited visibility. Verification vendors operate externally, and payments, they kind of live somewhere else entirely. Everyone is just working, but not together. Okay, over to the next stage. Now, quick questions for everybody. And no need to answer out loud, but how many of you have teams whose real jobs, if we're honest, is coordinating information between systems? So the real is that most organizations kind of already knows the answers. And here's what this makes worthy of 30 minutes of your time, that most lenders have already invested significantly in technology. The issue is almost never the individual platform, but the issue is that the ecosystem itself isn't entirely alive. So over the last decades, most lending organizations evolved their technology incrementally rather than architecturally. So the loan origination system solved one problem, a servicing platform solved another, a CRM curator, verification vendors plugged in, payment infrastructure evolved separately, and compliance tooling got layered on top. Now, the living ecosystem model that we call it is a way to understand the state of the reality in which we're living. A data ecosystem in which every system operates independently and people at the integration layer, an ecosystem in intensive care is where things are kind of connected, but through fragile integrations. Spreadsheets and tribal knowledge, yeah, it works until we scale or change breaks it. And a living ecosystem is obviously an ideal situation where data flows automatically, events trigger workflows instantly, and underwriting, servicing, and compliance, funding, and communications operates in coordinations. So we're requiring a coordinated kind of setup, but not isolated tools. Now, that's what I think it requires a shift. Not what a tool do we need, but how should information move through the business from applications to funding and to servicing. Now, to the next slide. Let's look at this from the outside in. Borrowers increasingly evaluate lenders as digital operation experiences, not simply financial institutions. Like I said, the borrower experiences like just one company, like just one really big experience, one journey, one promise. They expect applications to move instantly, documents to synchronize automatically, decisions to happen quickly. Now, communication to stay consistent. And from the borrower's perspective, everything from origination, underwriting to servicing, they're just one experience. And let me tell you, lenders winning the market share are not just the ones with better rates, but they're the ones with lower frictions. Organizations that don't orchestrate workflows create invisible friction everywhere, like slower closing or duplicated requests, manual reviews, or inconsistent communications, and unfortunately, the borrower notices. So let me ask you this. When was the last time a borrower complimented on your internal architecture? Probably never, but they absolutely notice when that fails. So according to Housing Wire, for example, let's take mortgage. Every 100 borrowers who begin a mortgage applications, only about 45 to 55 ultimately reach a closing table. And obviously, the friction of this workflow is at the center of it. Now, to our next block, there is something that we call the hidden operational ceiling. Here's the defining operational tension in lending today. This is something that Pablo and I, we've experienced for some time now with really live events. The widening gaps between business ambition and operational adaptability. So business leaderships wants faster closing, higher automation, embedded finance, partner integrations, AI assisting operations, lower cost to serve, and more scalability, especially now with all the AI tools and all the AI enhancement that we have. There's a large portion of decision makers in the business coming to technology saying, hey, we should be doing more with everything that's available, but the reality is somehow different. Operational reality often can't support that ambition. Systems are somehow disconnected. There's fragile integrations and a lot of manual exceptions, right? Especially with compliance bottlenecks or teams competing through sheer human effort. And that gap between what the business wants to achieve and what operation can reliably execute becomes the biggest real growth ceiling. This is something we found in our everyday work with our clients. The cost rarely appears in one line item. It's spread everywhere with longer closing cycles, higher follow rates, manual underwriting overhead, borrowers abandoning applications, servicing efficiencies, and slower product launches. And obviously, there is a lot of operational burnout here. It's invisible operational drag, but at scale, it becomes enormous. Now, so if this diagnosis fragmented coordination, what does the cure actually look like? For that, I want to bring the person who designs the system for a living, Pablo here, like I introduced him before, our CTO. He's going to show you what a living ecosystem looks like under the skin without obviously making anyone to open a terminal. Pablo?
Thanks, Lara. And I will keep that promise. No code, I promise. But I do want to take you one level deeper in this information. Not technical, but actually where this metaphor becomes very real. As Lara mentioned before, if a fragmented coordination is the problem, the solution is not adding more organs. Most lenders don't need another platform. The solution is building what Lara mentioned as an example, the circulation system. In the human body, the blood carries oxygen, nutrients, signals everywhere in real time. That circulation layer is what allows the body to coordinate instantly. No organ as another organ for a status update. In lending, orchestration plays exactly the same role. It's a layer that lets borrower data, verification events, underwriting decisions, servicing updates, payment information, and compliance workflow move reliably across the organization without anyone chasing them. Where orchestration is designed correctly, a few things change fundamentally. Systems stop depending on fragile point-to-point connections. Processes active automatically the moment something happens. Changes in one area don't break the entire ecosystem. Data becomes consistent everywhere it appears. Teams stop chasing information and operations become adaptable instead of brittle. Notice that none of that is a technological outcome. Those are business outcomes enabled by architecture. For those who want technical names, we are talking about event-driven operations, workflow engines, and proper integration layers. What the industry is starting to call the composable lending ecosystems. The point of all is the same. Every system publishes what just happened, and every system that needs to reacts instantly without a human in the middle. And this matters strategically because the orchestration layer is part of your architecture. You actually own it. Your LOS is a vendor. Your CRM is a vendor. The way information moves between them, that is your operation model. That's where operational resilience lives. Let's go to the next slide, please. Let me make this concrete. Take the single most ordinary event in your business. A borrower submits an application, one click, no. Watch what that click has set in motion. First, identity verification, credit pull, income and employment verification, document collection, fraud screening, compliance checks, underwriting rules, pricing, CRM updates, borrower communication, eventually funding, and then the handoff to servicing. That's one loan, dozen of systems, dozen of decisions, hundreds of data points touched. In a fragmented ecosystem, that clicks start a relay race. Each step waits for the previous one. Each handoff is a person. Someone downloads a verification report and uploads it somewhere else. Someone noticed a condition was clear and emails an underwriting. Someone updates the CRM or forgets to. That's usual. Every handoff at hours or days, and every manual touch adds the change of an error that surfaces 3 steps later. In a living ecosystem, that same click the same click is starting on. The application event fires, and everything that can run in parallel runs in parallel. Verification launch simultaneously. The moment income data lands, underwriting rules evaluate them automatically. The moment a condition clears, the borrower is notified by the systems in seconds, not by whoever checked the queue after lunch. Same loan, same vendors, same people. By the way, nobody got fired in this history. They just stopped being an integration layer, a human layer, and went back doing their actual jobs. Judgment, exceptions, and relationships. The difference in elapsed time isn't 10 or 20%. When sequential human-paced handoff become parallel event-driven workflows, cycle times collapses. Days becomes hours, and this in part this is the part executives care about. The cost per loan drops while the borrower experience improves a lot. Those usually trade off against each other. Orchestration is one of the few investments they don't. One of the things before I hand back to Lara, everything I just described is observable. A living ecosystem doesn't just run. It tells you how it's running, where the loans are stuck, which handoffs are slow, which vendor is a bottleneck, and you can manage what you can see. And most lenders today are flying blind between systems. That's what we try to present in a way in real time. What are the transactions and processes that are running correctly or not, and give you the information and the tools to fix it fast. Lara, that's my anatomy lesson. Please.
All
Let's
right.
back to
Thank you
the
so much.
means.
Great. Thank you, Pablo. Thank you for that input. So here's just a few numbers to place us where we are in the industry. So for example, Mortgage Banker Association in Q2 2025 stated that a mortgage loan was about $11,000. Think about all of these millions of dollars that go down the drain because of lack of a healthy and living workflow. So despite massive investment in lending technology, origination still remains expensive. Even if we're going to reduce fallout by a very few percentage points, that can translate into millions of dollars in annual impact. So over to the next phase. What we would like to say is think of every manual handoff that Pablo just described as a mirror image on the borrower side. The internal kind of swivel chair moment becomes the external, why are they asking me for these documentations again, kind of movement. So in friction compounds, a borrower who waits an extra 2 days for a decision starts shopping. A borrower asked to resubmit a document loses confidence. A borrower who calls support and discovers that support doesn't know the status tells that story to other people. This shows up in 3 numbers that every lending executive already tracks. Pull through, friction is one of the biggest drivers of application abandonment. And abandonment applications are marketing dollars you already spent, like we were just showing in the previous slide. And cycle time, every day between application and closing is a day for rates to move, circumstances to change, and competitors to call. And repeat business, right? In lending, the product is largely the process. Borrowers don't come back to a process that felt like they had to do more work. All right. So there is a second property of living ecosystem that matters even more than the speed. Is the fact that living ecosystems adapt. Think about what a growth actually demands from a lending operation, and this is something you probably see on your daily basis. Volumes double when rates move. Can your operation absorb it without doubling headcount? You launch a new product. Does it take a quarter? Does it take a year? You add a channel or a partner, an embedded finance integration. Does the ecosystem extend or does it crack? A regulation changes. Is that configuration update or a 6-month project? So in an ecosystem held together by manual effort and fragile integrations, every one of those events is a small crisis. And guess what? These events, they happen all the time. When volume scales, workflows are automated in a living ecosystem that responds completely different because coordination doesn't live in people's heads. It lives in the architecture. Products launch faster because capabilities are, like Pablo said, composable. You're reassembling existing places, like not rebuilding. Change is absorbed at one layer instead of rippling through every system. This is what operational resilience really means. Not like nothing ever breaks, right? But change doesn't hurt, more like. In a market where rates, regulations, and borrower expectations all move constantly, the lenders who can adapt fastest set the pace for everyone else. Let me bring this to the altitude where decisions actually get made. For most of the last decade, integration was treated as an IT line item, something that happens after real decisions to make the tools work together. And we would argue that is exactly backwards. How information moves through your business determines how fast you close, how much each loan costs you, and how quickly you launch product, and what your borrower feels. Those are not IT outcomes. Those are like growth levers your brand board needs already discusses in every quarter, but just under different names. So the questions for leadership isn't which platform should we buy next, is what is our orchestration maturity today? Where does it need to be support from our own growth plan? And what's the gap for that? The lenders treating ecosystems architecture as a strategic asset, like something they design, measure, and invest deliberately, are quietly building an advantage that's very hard to copy. A competitor may buy the same LOS that you have next quarter, but they cannot buy your operating model for sure. Okay, so going to our final part of this webinar. Our intention with Pablo and me was make it as informative as possible. So if we think about, again, with the human body, your learning orchestration is still an organism. The question was never whether it's alive. The question is how healthy the circulation is, because you're obviously operating a living business. So we would like to set the tone for you to ask maybe a few questions, see if we were able to somehow spike the curiosity of asking yourself where might be your workflow hurting the most, where might be is that your business is losing more money, or where are you restraining yourself from maybe making more money. So we're going to open up now the Q&A. If anyone would like to...
Lara, sorry, Lara, let me add something. From my side, also the technical conversation is part of it. If your team wants to go deep on the architecture, event flows, and how this coexists with the platform you already run, that's a conversation I will happily have. Nothing we describe require ripping anything out. It's just how we design or discuss the way that this circulation system is working on your organization. That's my part.
Something that we need to be clear about, there's no magical recipe. There's just not one right or wrong here. It's how your workflow is and what is your end purpose as a business? Who's your client? What's your main goal? So everything about this lending living ecosystem should be defined by those business metrics. So even if you ask us from a technical standpoint, from a technical perspective, the answer will be always according to your business. Okay, I have a couple of questions. Yeah, I saw that. I saw this was coming. Where is AI helping the most in lending operations? This is for Pablo for sure.
Yeah. Well, actually, there is a lot of way to approach how AI is impacting these kind of things. First of all, as a builder of platforms and tools, we have built our own framework that is using AI to help us our teams code faster with more clear documentation and more streamlined processes. And we are also adding some logic algorithms and models into the process, like to have a credit scoring or screenings or information that needs manual processes that are boring or repeatable to be processed using some algorithms and models that can improve and react faster to responses. But one of the things that we are living on and we have in all our frameworks are tools with our customers is the importance of human in the loop. We rely on AI and models to prepare documents, revisions, information checks and validations, but we also need this human in the loop to validate that the process is correctly done and the information is aligned with the expectation of the process.
Okay. Well, great. Thank you, Pablo. Some of the things that we've also seen in our experience helping our clients is the layer of AI in terms of how it's going to help lending operation. It depends a lot on the established architecture. And you can have like certain solutions at small scale, like a pricing engine or a dev consolidation process that also works with AI, as long as your data is clean, as long as the integrations are well connected, etc. Let's go over to the next question. Paul here says, how difficult is it so adjust acceptable risk levels in certain areas of the ecosystem? Can it be a global change or adjusted by area of operation? I think that this is for you as well, Pablo.
Can you repeat that because I'm get lost
Sure.
in.
How difficult is it to adjust acceptable risk levels in certain areas of the ecosystem? It can be a global change or adjusted by area of operation.
Well, actually, that is part of the parametric definition of architecture we have to build. Difference of a platform that is pre-built with certain rules and conditions, we try to define and design architectures that are adaptable to the business needs of each of our customers. In this case, it's part of the rules that we define in the beginning of the architecture definition is how granular we can be on parametric configuration of the different tools. If by area, by type of product, by client, by sector. We try to be the most flexible on these definitions, but defining on the initial schemas of the architecture, how we will update that. We know that the market change frequently and needs to be adaptable to new demands and challenges, and this is part of that definition. Is basically we help you to define how you implement that and what level of granularity to have this personalization.
I think that everything in terms of technology is doable. You just need to be clear on what is that, where you want to go with this. And obviously, yes, there should be some compliance or security constraints, but in our experiences, if the design is well prepared, or is it there's is like it has an infrastructure, or the first part thoroughly designed, there shouldn't be a problem with that. I do have another question said about security and compliance for an event layer. Maybe Pablo can help you with that.
Sure. Well, in that case, one of the most important things that we talk with our customers today is how we can reinforce or be very, very thoughtful on the security implementation of everything. First, for compliance, second, for security itself. The idea is that centralizing flows improves the auditability. One place to observe, log, and control every data movement instead of 50 points of data collection. That's what we try to design an architecture from the beginning. Observability, I mentioned before in the presentation, is a fundamental part to understand what is happening on the platform, how the flows works, and also how we can catch any abnormality in the process, so we can catch on security issues faster, but also designing the architecture with design on the first stage every day.
Another question that I usually get every time I have these conversations with people is about people asking me if they will need to replace their existing LOS or the existing core system. And this is something that I always tell everyone, that orchestration coexists with existing platforms. That's the point of the circulation metaphor. We don't necessarily need to replace what is actually working. We just need to find out where to improve, what takes more time or what takes more effort from the human person to do that. So if you were interested in modernizing or upgrading or even updating some of your existing systems, sometimes it might be a matter of obviously sitting down with your peers and decision makers and trying to understand where is your borrower sitting and where are they leveraging as a competitive advantage for your business, and from that decide if what can be replaced and what can still stay there but be connected in a more seamless way to work as a one very good experience for the borrower. Okay, so if there's no more questions, I wanted to thank everyone for their time and appreciate for being here. Here's my contact. I'll definitely reach out after this webinar with the recording, so you can keep it for your records and consult if anything. And then you have my email and my phone number for any consultation with me or with Pablo that you're interested in having from a text perspective. You are the ones defining the business, not us, obviously, but we'll be more than happy to help you in a conversation about what are you currently struggling with and where is that you would like to go in terms of technology. And obviously, with everything that the AI is doing for most of the business these days. So again, thank you, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'll see you soon.
Thank you.